Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in our first of Higher Education Leaders series. We have with us Professor Furqan Qamar, who is a distinguished higher education leader and higher education personality, should I say, in our part of the world, who has done phenomenal work and who continues to some phenomenal work in the space of higher education, management, leadership, administration, a lot of other allied subjects. I'll go through his detailed profile. But before I start talking about Professor Kamar, I would like also to take this moment to welcome all of you on behalf of the Outreach Collective. My name is Ankur Bora. I'm the co-founder of the Outreach Collective. I am joined today by my co-founder, Bhakti Shah, who is also going to be moderating this session along with me. The first 30 minutes of this session, I have got some Q&A of my own. There are some curated questions that we had in mind about me and Bhakti that I have taken the opportunity of asking at the first. It will be about 30 minutes time that we have allocated to this part of the session. Post my curated Q&A, Bhakti will be leading the moderated Q&A session with Professor Kamar. This series has been envisioned by us as as all of us are higher education students in one way or the other. Either we are working as career counselors, or we are working in universities, or we are working with schools. We all are guiding our students to universities, and one of the major areas for all of us to be educated upon is our universities in India. And Professor Kamar has been a key personality in that area. Let me go through his profile. Dr. Furqan Qamar is presently a professor of management at the Center of Management Studies, Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. Professor Qamar has served as the Secretary General of the Association of Indi-an Universities, which is AIU, the largest and one of the oldest network of universities in the world. In his illustrious career, he has held the position of Vice Chancellor of the University of Raja-sthan and the Central University of Himachal, Pradesh. He has also served as an advisor in the Planning Commission of India. So he has been phenomenally, as I said, one of the leading personalities who has been there, done that, and he continues to write quite regularly in the leading media publications of the day. He has been also, somebody that I have looked up to in my PhD journey. As some of you are aware, I am also doing a PhD at the Global University in the area of higher education research, and he has been quite helpful in guiding me in that area as well. So today's topic of discussion is the new national education policy. I still say new because the policy came out in 2020, but the implementation of it will continue for years to come, as many of us who have been part of those discussions internally in our WhatsApp groups and conversations about NEP 2020 and how it's going to impact the higher education scenario in our country. So to begin with, Professor Kamar, I would like to start with you and asking you a very basic question. What will be your overall feedback on the proposed policy reforms in the higher education sector as proposed by NEP 2020? If we can have an overall view from you, sir.
Thank you, Ankur, for giving me this opportunity. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and to touch base with you. National education policy is still new. We are less than a month away from its 3rd anniversary. And past 2 anniversaries we have celebrated with a great gusto. If you ask me that what are my feelings about this policy, I'll say good, bad, and ugly, to use this word. Many provisions of the policy are good. The way they are being read or misread, interpreted, misinterpreted is bad. The way they are implementing it is ugly. And implementation is the crux. This is not for the first time that we have a policy in our country relating to education or any other field. And every time we saw that the policy didn't work, and the blame was passed on to implementation issues. We all know that a good prose impresses us, but implementing it on ground is a huge challenge, and therefore the policy should account for the implementation challenges. So I'll repeat my word. My first impression, good, bad, ugly. Good in terms of content, bad in terms of its understanding and the way we are made to understand it, and ugly the way the policy is being implemented.
This is fantastic. I mean, you have put it so, articulated it so well. I couldn't have asked for a better first answer from you. But good, bad, and ugly. I mean, all three things combined. And I think in a way, when NEP 2020 came around, I still remember vividly, it was the COVID era, and we were all, in our home. And this was one of the most exciting stuff to be happening. I mean, after 1986, which was the last time that the national education policy was brought in, this was something that was coming in after more than 3 decades of a time lapse. And it was the first time that I really took notice of NEP 2020. And now with higher education, being a PhD student of higher education, now I reflected and I went back to the previous education policies that have been written, which was 86 and 68 and quite a few of them earlier, also the commission reports that have come on higher education. I think there are a lot of things that are similar, and we continue to grapple with the same problems over and over again. And I'll come to them in a while, but it's like we keep going around in the circles in the higher education field, at least. I mean, I'll not talk about other parts of our education sector, but as a student, I really felt that, there are a lot of challenges that have been plaguing our sector, higher education sector, for long years, and there is no end to sight to the problems that we are facing. But before we get into those parts, I would like to also look at the brighter sides of things, the good side of things. And I like to, delve more on that. How do you think, what are the brighter spots in the national education policies that you think are the steps in the right direction for us?
Thank you, Ankur. Let me begin by saying that the process of making this policy had begun sometime in 2012 and 13. Many people may not recall it. Then finally, in 2015, it was started with constitution of the committees and the discussions and the deliberations and discussion and consultation at the grassroots level, as they said. Then one report came, and then Kasturi Rangan committee report had come in 2016, which served as a basis for this national education policy. To me, 2020 was not a good time to launch the policy, because we all know, who run a system, that one of our job is also to ensure that we minimize uncertainties. Anytime you bring in a change, that change bring in uncertainty. So 2019 onward, we were living in a very uncertain time. Because of the pandemic, nobody knew how to handle it. Many people were suffering, institutions were closed or running online. So it came at that time. Anyway, it had to come someday, so it came. Now, you asked me that what are some of the good features. For example, everything that it says about reforms in higher education, I would say that they are all fine. We can't afford to have a rigid system of higher education. We need to have a higher education system which is flexible. So from that point of view, the modularity and the entry mid-course and the exit mid-course, and then a holistic approach to higher education rather than remaining in your silos. And these kind of arguments were given by eminent academicians and by eminent scientists. For example, if you read Yashpal committee reports, I mean, one of the principal arguments for making all institutions multidisciplinary was that whatever we could invent in the core of a discipline has already been invented. So if you want to invent, and in a knowledge economy, invention, discoveries, innovations are very important. So it will come through intermingling of disciplines, so porous boundaries and other things. So all of these things that the policy talks about higher education reforms, particularly in the area of institutions, in the area of programs, in the area of disciplines, I welcome them. In fact, many of those provisions we had implemented at the Central University of Himachal Pradesh way back in 2011, particularly the mobility of the student, allowing them to leave with a diploma rather than a degree if they are leaving in between. Second thing that I liked, though I would have felt happier if there were some time limits prescribed, that the policy spoke and realized that public investment in education is of utmost importance. So it repeated, it rather felt sad that our 60-year-old promise is yet to see the light of day, that we will be spending 6% of the GDP on education. So it said that the state and the center put together would work hard to invest about 6% of the GDP in education. Presently, it is about 3%, so doubling the public investments. So I like that. I would have felt happier if it would have, like many other things, would have suggested that, okay, it will be achieved in the next 15 years or next 20 years, but no time limit was given. Third thing, I think the policy overdid it a little bit, but I think that was needed in the sense that the policy gave that there shall be no discrimination between the public and the private sector. The private sector shall be subject to the same conditions, rules, regulations with which the public sectors are subjected to. I think this is important because the distinction between public and private has been there, but now they account for 60% plus enrollment. And I'm not talking about the aided institution, I'm talking about the self-financed who survive only on the basis of fees. So they play a very important role. These are our students, and improving quality in these institutions is as important as improving quality in the public higher education system. So it said that, okay, private sector shall get a due space. I would say that there have been repetition that the private sector will be given due importance. I think too many repetition was unnecessary. Another thing that I would say about this policy, which I did not like, you see, we are a very old civilization. Minimum 3,000-year-old civilization. Many people would say 5,000, and beyond 5,000, the way people speak is that there is no gap between 5,000 and 10,000 years. But anyway, 5,000 years or at least 3,000 years ago. And we have been building upon whatever has been our own knowledge system. We have been learning from the others' knowledge system. We have been exploring ourselves and evolving our own knowledge system. So what I did not like is to say that whatever happened only in the ancient India, and between ancient India till now, nothing worthwhile happened. I mean, the data does not say so, even the quantitative data. You look, when we became independent, at that time, there were less than or about 1 lakh students studying in higher education. There were only about 20 universities. There were only 500 colleges. Women were almost non-existent in the system. Scheduled caste, scheduled tribe could not even think of going to colleges. So that was the situation. From that till now, we have enrollment of about 4.13 crore, that is 41.3 millions. there are only 35 countries in the world which have a population of more than 41 million. So that is the size of the India's higher education system. All this has been achieved over the past 75 years. After independence, we cannot ignore it. India earned its reputation from a land of saperas and basuriwalas and beanwalas to techie, to information technology, to Indians occupying very high leadership positions in academia abroad, in the industry abroad. Many CEOs, CMDs, they came from, at least they had the first degree in India and they were serving abroad, very widely respected. All this was achieved during the past 75 years after independence. So I think it was a bit stretching too far to say that, okay, we didn't do anything after ancient time. Second thing, I think clarity of ideas and thoughts are very important. So on the one plane, this policy talks about sustainable development goals, SDG and achieving them, and education as a right. On the other hand, it goes back that, okay, we will be achieving it through a route which will go via our ancient past. So they are invoking that ancient past. Maybe ancient past is very important. We should not forget about it. Radhakrishnan Commission in 1948, and Radhakrishnan was a philosopher, was a very well-respected person, has also said that India and people in higher education must not forget that India had a strong system of education in our ancient time. But today's higher education, as it is known in India and elsewhere, has very little common with those ancient times. So these were, I said, there were many good things in terms of the proposition. Since I said that a few things that we didn't like, and one thing, as I said, that what I didn't like is the way the policy is being read. So, for example, okay, one nation, one examination idea. Okay, that could be a new thinking. No harm in thinking something new. But to say that, okay, as per the policy and since the policy prescribes this, we are trying to implement it. I read the policy document again and again, first by my eyes and then using technology, finding words. And then I found that the policy says that there should be a common principle for granting admission in higher education institutions. Then the policy said that now the National Testing Agency is there and they would be conducting tests. And it may be hoped that this National Testing Agency would follow a system and the processes which will be so good that universities may themselves on their own volition may want to use those scores to decide about the admission. But the policy very clearly said that no university would be forced to use those scores alone. The decision shall be that of the individual universities. So now the policy says one thing, we are reading another thing. So in one of my pieces I wrote, the policy sometimes is being used as a pretext to implement something which suits you, rather than in its proper context. So I think I have taken a longer time to elaborate on this question that you asked and put, but go ahead.
No problem, Professor. I think you covered a lot of important subjects, and I would like to take them bit by bit so that we can talk about them in detail. One of the things that you mentioned was that, the multidisciplinary aspect of the national education policy, the freedom given to students to, opt out with a diploma in 2 years or, go on to do a 4-year degree or a 3-year degree was something that you also delved during your time at the Himachal University as a Vice Chancellor there. So, I mean, I would really want to understand because we have been thinking about, hearing about the 4-year degree. We also remember the time that, the Delhi University tried to go the 4-year route and then had to roll back that decision. And now NEP talked about the 4-year degrees and giving the more flexibility to students. How was your experience and how do you think this benefits the students in India? I mean, uh, what is your take on a 4-year program or a 3-year program? Which is better, or just your viewpoints on this aspect?
So let us divide this into two things. And these two things are independent of one another and they are not interlinked, though we are trying to interlink them. One is changing the duration of the program. So when we were a student, the bachelor program was of 2-year duration. When my children did or you did your bachelor's degree, the bachelor's degree was of 3 years duration. Now they are talking about 4-year duration. So duration is to be decided that with the expansion in knowledge, what all need to be covered by a graduate in order to possess certain knowledge and skills. So let us take that aside, whether 4-year or maybe I'll complete this. Now, the whole North America, the United States, Canada, they had a 4-year of undergraduate program. United Kingdom has 13 years of schooling and 3 years of bachelor program. We in India, prior to this policy, had 12 years of schooling, but then prior to 12 years, there were also 2 years which students go to pre-primary, though that is a very urban phenomena, elite phenomena. Only rich people or middle income groups send their children to preschools. But anyway, 2 years children spend before that. When the European Union was formed, there was a very comprehensive exercise undertaken as to what should be the duration, because within Europe there were variations. And the European Union, through the European Credit Transfer Framework, decided, or European Higher Education Area decided, that okay, they will have 12 years of schooling, they will have 3 years of bachelor's degree, non-engineering, engineering, etc. would be a little higher, medical would be a little higher, and master's degree would be of 2 years. So the world is divided. Now in India, many people would have said that our students were at a bit disadvantage when they were seeking admission in postgraduate programs or graduate degree program in United States or in Canada, because they were insisting on a 4-year bachelor's degree. So by making it 4 years, you are in fact facilitating them. I would say that they were never denying any student from a 3-year program, but they were seeing at the institution, or at the most, they were seeing that, okay, you are bright enough, but you'll have to do a year more in order to do your master's. So now we have become, rather than Eurocentric, to US-centric, as far as the duration of the program is concerned. So let us stop there. Now coming to this modularity and the flexibility. Presently, the structure is that, okay, the minimum duration of a program is defined. So 3 years or 4 years. Now with the semester, the duration is defined in terms of semester. You are supposed to complete all semesters as per norms. And if you are unable to complete all those semesters, you are a failure, you are a dropout, you get nothing from the university. So this has been the model that we prevail, that has been prevalent. Now, the society is changing, the nature of the economy is changing. We are no more kind of agrarian economy where people were rooted at one place. Now people are mobile, their job changes, sometime under compulsion, families have to change, and so on and so forth. And in higher education, there have been no possibility that, okay, supposing there was an officer who was posted in one place, her daughter completed 2 semesters, and now they moved from east to west, and now she could get admissions to a 3rd-year program. And therefore, she would either stay away from the parent or would lose that you have done it.
Nikhil, can you? Yeah, okay, sorry.
Okay. So, so this rigidity was many way a kind of barrier. So making the program modular, and modularity has entered into through innovation in the all manufacturing sector, etc. That okay, fine. Why do you say that okay, if you leave in between, you won't get anything and you will be considered a failure or a dropout? So you provided a scope that okay, fine, if you complete 2 semesters, you get a proficiency or certificates. You complete another 2 semester in the same university, you get a diploma, and you complete all the 6 semesters, you get a degree. You complete all the 4 semester of an undergraduate program, you get a bachelor degree. I am perfectly okay. In Himachal, when I implemented this, in the first convocation, no student had used this option. They all had completed their master's level program. We only had master's program there. In the second convocation, some 9-10 students opted for this route, that after completing 2 semesters, they wanted to get out. So curious, I had a meeting with those students, and then I found, to my surprise, pleasant surprise, that these students had taken admission to master's program, but they were simultaneously also preparing for jobs in bank probationary officers, in civil services, in shipping corporations. So those 9 students had got jobs in public sector enterprises, either banks or shipping corporation or LIC or general insurance. Now, given the employment market conditions, ek anar so bimar, so for them the job was more important than education. So they chose this route, that okay, I will quit after 2 semesters, will join my job. And our rule provided that okay, if your organization could give you a leave, you could join within 3 years and you could restart from where you had left. And if you complete the other 2 semesters, you will get your master's degree, and the diploma that you got, that will stand surrendered to the university. After that, I mean, by the time my term completed, none of them had come back, but I'm very sure that those who join public sector, they will take leave without pay or extraordinary leave, and some of them would come. Now, the only danger, in fact, I have had some detailed discussion, and there have been people who were saying that this provision is elitist. And that is based on the danger that if you compulsorily make people leave in between, supposing you say that, okay, if you did not get a CGPA of this much, then you have to leave. You can't continue. If you try to do that, then it will become elitist, and then I'm not for it. So long as it is a voluntary decision, a student's own choice or parents' choice to continue or to discontinue or leave with diploma, I am perfectly okay. Why I'm saying that I'm not okay with the force that people leave? Because merit is a social construct. Many factors play role in the performance of the students. If you are rich, if you have support, if you have family endowment, your learning is greatly facilitated by that environment. If you are a first generation learner, your parents live in slums, they have to survive for their ends to meet, where children have to support their family. If there is a sickness in those families, the whole family is disturbed. So the education of the kids also gets affected. So it should not be. Policy is very clear. Policy doesn't say that it will be mandatory for people, but the fear is that the way they are implementing the bad part and the ugly part of it, so people are a bit apprehensive. Otherwise, I find that this is good. Now, the third thing that is related to it is that, okay, make higher education holistic. Make higher education holistic. Now, over a period of time, like it has happened in medical field, I'm taking analogy from the medical field. In our childhood, there used to be a general physician. In UK also, there is a general physician whom you go, and nearly 90% of the time, that general physician would be good enough to diagnose and to treat the medicine. Now things have changed in India and America, that you go to general physician first, and then immediately he asks you to go to this super specialization, that okay, you have this symptom, okay, go and check the cardio, and you have this symptom, go and check the nephro. Now in higher education also, that kind of specialization and super specialization and very thin kind of specialization and super specialization has crept in. So it means somebody who has done mathematics is totally ignorant of what is happening in the world of philosophy, in the world of history, in the world of psychology. Every time you sit in an interview and you ask a mathematics graduate that, okay, you have learned trigonometry, tell me what are the practical application in management of that trigonometry. Some would be honest and say that, sir, all through my graduation, I have been thinking that what are the practical application? Many would be silent. So we need people who are educated, who specialize in some branch, but they are also generally aware. So if you take the current model of many best universities in the United States, which have a 4-year program, they say that 2 years is a time when students swim across the campus. And when they swim across the campus, they happen to see many disciplines, many branches, many teachers. And during that swimming process and learning process, they discover their own strength and they discover their own likings and disliking. And the next 2 years is devoted to diving deep. So swim across and dive deep. So policy did not use this term, but then this concept was there. So they are also saying swim across and dive deep so that you do it. Now, where lies the problem? You see, these decisions in US universities, they are not binding people to compulsorily do this elective and that elective, or this compulsory or that compulsory. These decisions are left to students. In India, we are still not ready, we are still not willing, in fact, to respect the decision of the students. I mean, our students who come to universities, they are mature enough to vote, to decide that who will be their prime minister, who will be their MP, who will be their MLAs. So if they can take such crucial decisions, you should also trust them to take decision as to what do they want to study, rather than forcing them. But we are still bound in that framework that these are the core, these are the compulsories, and then these are the optionals, and then these are the electives. And within that framework, we are broadening the choice. So policy wanted, give freedom to students. But the way it is being implemented is the core. And again, going back to roots, have some input on this dimension, have some input on this kind of things. So I think so long as that happens, we will lose on the merit which the principle of this idea explains. Over to you, Ankur.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor, for that, again, detailed answer to my question. I have certain follow-up questions, but I'll leave them for now because I am also conscious of the time. I'd like to invite Bhakti right now for her part of the session. Bhakti, over to you for your moderated Q&A.
Thanks, Ankur. Caught me off guard for a second. I was just drinking water and I was like, oh, that's my name. So, Dr. Qamar, first of all, I mean, I don't have too much locus standi to comment on what you just said, but I must say that it has definitely, in the last 20 minutes of hearing you, my understanding of NEP is better than what it was after reading all the articles in the last few years. So the reason is you've deviated from the norm and given us nuances that I don't think people generally talk about much. So thank you for those observations. We are throwing the floor open to our participants to ask you any questions. Anyone, if you have a question, just raise your hand and we will come to you and you can ask your question directly to Dr. Qamar. I know it's a lot. NEP is a very vast subject, and what Dr. Qamar has said is very, very nuanced and deep. So If you need 30 seconds to think about what you want to ask, go ahead and take those 30 seconds. But this is your chance to talk to an expert on the NEP. And while we wait for audience questions, Dr. Qamar, I'd like to quickly get your view on the whole foreign universities setting up campuses in India bit, right? What is your take on that? And we know that there are 2 universities that are already all set to set up their campuses in Gift City. But do you think that, I mean, do you really think that this is going to be a scalable future for international education, setting up campuses in India, foreign universities setting up campuses in India? And B, there's a lot of talk of how do universities ensure quality, consistency? Can they really replicate that experience here? Because we have our challenges with faculty, with fee structures. So how is this going to work in your view?
Bhakti is a very good question. First of all, India did not have a framework for allowing foreign universities to come, establish and operate from India. So from that point of view, I would say that, okay, so long as you have provided a framework, it's fine. For a long time, we have been struggling. Many thought that this deemed university route would not work, and therefore there should be a legislation. And they tried to bring in twice a legislation called Foreign Universities Entry and Operation Law. Perhaps it did not succeed then, but this time again, they have brought in the deemed university route, not a law. So anyway, some framework is better than nothing. They are offering many possibilities to foreign universities. In the Gift City, and the Gift City is a kind of special education zone. And you are all familiar that special economic zones are a foreign territory within the national territory. I mean, in a very simple word. So in the special economic zone, foreign companies come in, Indian laws do not apply to them. They are governed by the foreign laws. And of course, there are some limits, some foundation, etc. So Gift City is that kind of idea. So it is economic as well as education. So it's an education zone. Now there are 2-3 claims being made. One claim is that by bringing in foreign universities to India, we will be able to stop and retain people who go abroad to study. So that is an argument of the import substitution. To the extent I have understood the subject, I can give you in writing that this will not happen. Those who want to go abroad will want to go abroad because they go for a university, they go for the environment, they go for a climate change, they go for a kind of new experience, and above all, they go for better career and economic prospects, which foreign university in India would not offer. Second, the claim that is being made is that the best of the best, so MIT would come to Merit and Oxford could come to Goregaon and so on and so forth, the best of the best would not come to India. Even the best of the best, which are private, Harvard is private, Stanford is private, Yale is private, they have been very, very selective and choosy in establishing offshore campuses. And that is the reason that the policy had said that the top 100 universities would be invited to establish in India, and our regulation extended it to top 500. So they knew that top 100 are not going to come. But will this top 500 serve our purpose? Not at all. India had many advantages. I mean, we are forgetting one thing. India could have taken a very lead role in educating the whole of South Asia and Africa, and would have played the same role which America, Europe had done for their colonial countries like India. So we could have, but unfortunately, rather than occupying a leadership role, we are falling into a consumer role. Third thing, it is being claimed that these universities will bring in foreign faculty. Even in Singapore, which provided all the land facilitation, even in Sharjah and Dubai, which provided land facilitation, concession, they offered dollar salaries. These foreign universities only have a visiting people coming for a week or 10 days. Bulk of the teaching is done by the locally recruited people. So it will be the locally recruited people. No harm, it will add to some employability for the academics. And I'm sure that unless we dilute our standards so much in attracting them, chances are that they will be offering better service condition, better education. So that will happen. Will they be able to contribute any significantly in our expansion of the higher education? No, not at all. They will play a very minor, minuscule role in the enrollment. So don't expect that some 10% or 15% of the enrollment addition would come through these foreign universities. That will not happen. I give you a reason that these universities will charge dollar fees, and even if they fix purchasing power parity basis, still that fees would be way high. So today, if somebody doesn't get to IIMs, which are charging about 30 lakhs as fees, so they would want to go abroad. They would not want to go to a branch campus here in India. There is one dimension, sorry, my answer is becoming longer, but one last sentence I would say. You see, we need to increase our gross enrollment ratio, which is presently 27%. Policy says it has to be taken to 50%. Fantastic, very good. For all those people who are attending this webinar, for all of you, your gross enrollment ratio is 100% plus. You did not have problem for the admission of your children. The only sacrifice they had to make is, if not this IIT, then that IIT, if not this university, then that university. So for us, it is already 100 plus. If the national average is still 27%, so who are the people because of whom this national average is low? These are the people who are farmers, agricultural laborers, cultivators, poor women, beggars. And these people need quality education at affordable cost. Will these foreign universities be able to ensure affordability? Some scholarship is fine, but beyond that, it's a challenge. So I think I have answered your question as briefly as I could.
As briefly and as beautifully as you could, I think. And again, Ankur and I've asked this question to many guests, and Ankur will agree with me that this has been one of the most elaborate and satisfying responses from a logical perspective. So thank you for that, Dr. Qamar. And we go on to Harish Menon, one of our members who has a question. Harish, go ahead, ask your question.
Thank you, Bhakti. Hello, Professor Qamar. Thank you for such a finely and nuanced explanation about NEP. My question is from the teacher's perspective. I think based on my very amateurish understanding of NEP, it proposes significant transformation around teacher training and professional development, which I presume would require significant investments. I think my understanding of India as well is that there's a shortage of qualified teachers. Could you speak to how our country can address this problem through NEP? Thank you.
Yeah, Harish, despite all technological advancement, teachers remain important. And we are now presently having artificial intelligence and machine learning, but throughout our evolution process, we were faced with one technology or another, and every time people said that teachers would become redundant. So when printing press was invented, so they said that now all the knowledge has come on paper, and these papers are available across the globe. or at least across a particular geography, and therefore teacher would become redundant. You just teach them how to read and they will know all the knowledge. But we know that teachers adopted textbooks so well that now without teacher, you can't imagine a textbook, and without textbooks, you can't imagine teacher. Then radio technology and other things. So today, there are many people who say that, okay, write an obituary of the brick and mortar university. But there are also some who say that the future university would be that old Socratic style of universities, where you pose question and people answer, and you counter answer question, and then you make people think. And old university would go back to the chalk and talk method. So I still believe that teacher would remain critical factor. I can also give you an important that these universities, which are very high in technology, MIT, Stanford, Harvard, Chicago, Yale, all of them are very advanced in technology, much more advanced than any university in India, as far as leveraging technology in teaching learning process is concerned. But you look at their vision document, none of them are targeting to reduce the number of teachers. Rather, they are targeting to reduce the student-teacher ratio. That means hiring more faculty. So some presently have a ratio of 1:8. They want to take it down to 1:5, because they have realized that research, innovation, on the basis of which the whole economic development now is hinging, depends on teachers and the researchers and the create environment. So you are very important. Teachers are very, very, very critical and will remain critical. Technology would enable them to do better if they adopt them. But technology will not substitute teachers. Now, do we have shortage of teachers? The way the discourse has taken place in our country, many people believe that perhaps there are not people to fill in these positions. The fact is that barring a very small number of disciplines across all disciplines, you have a very large number of people which meet all paper qualifications. Paper qualification means have master's degree, have qualified JRF NET examination, have done PhD, have published something. So there are large number of people. So they are available. What we find is that these products are a kind of semi-finished products. All those PhDs who are remaining unemployed, they lack their subject knowledge, but more than the subject knowledge, they lack those communication abilities and abilities to convince a selection committee that they are the right people who could do their teaching well. I have been saying that, okay, these are the semi-finished products, don't condemn them, reprocess them through some way to make them up to the mark. Third thing relating to that, in India, we have made huge compromises as far as the recruitment of teachers are concerned. I'm talking about public universities. 1992, when the economic liberalization took place, so there was also a time of rationalization. And they included education in that. So no new teachers to be appointed. All posts which were vacant are to labs. Those kinds of orders came between 92, 93. But in the center, they very soon realized that this should not apply to teachers because we are heading towards knowledge economy and this will compromise. So they reverted back, they took back those decisions and they said that this will not apply to teachers. Unfortunately, state governments, which provides for more than 87% of the total higher education, they did not take back those orders. So they did not sanction new positions. They did not allow their universities to fill up positions. So in this way, we created a vacuum of the teacher. And one thing leads to another. So supposing some post was advertised some 20 years ago, but they could not hold the selection committee because of these things. And now they want to hold selection committee, so people go to the court. that when you first time you had applied, I was eligible. NET was not there. Now you are saying that I'm not eligible. Court would also be willing to listen to their argument because there is a merit in that argument. So one thing, and then finally, which I feel very bad about it, that enrollments are increasing. You are not hiring teachers. Teaching has to go. So what you're doing, you invented what we now know in a different term, what is gig economy. Am I right in using that word? So at that time, the
gig economy,
gig economy, Gigo was different in computer, so gig economy. So at that time, the gig economy was not there, but we invented the new things, Shiksha Mitra, guest faculty, contractual faculty, part-time teacher, visiting teacher. And then what happened, the most unfortunate part, that they took them, and then these people started hobnobbing. I'll be very blunt. I've said it to many politicians. These people, when they make it to as a part-time guest contractual, they start hobnobbing with the politicians to extract a promise that when their government would come to power, they would be absorbed. And then they are absorbed without any selection committee, without merit. I tell you that how disastrous it is. In Himachal, first round, we advertised 70 positions. We didn't have visitors nominees, so we wanted to hire contractual with all the basic salary which a full-timer would get. We received only some 600 applications. Within a few months, and out of those 600, we could select 15 only. Within a few months, the visitors nominees' name came. So we advertised on full-time basis, the same 70 positions. And then the number of applications were more than 7,000. And the number was not only large, but many applicants were so good that even those 15 whom we had selected, we were finding it difficult to shortlist them for interview, even though we were shortlisting in the ratio of 1:20. For one post, 20 teachers. It means if you do not recruit properly, you end up packing the system up with junk. Again, though I'll not say that bluntly, training is very important. A training can make a racehorse into a better racehorse. But if the animal is not a horse, no amount of training would be able to convert them into either a horse or far less than racehorse. So training is important, requires investment, but training would be wasteful expenditure unless you have ensured that the competent people do come in. So this is my answer to your question.
Thank you. And just to support what you just said, the World Economic Forum's Future of Job reports also says that by 2027, one of the top three most hired for positions in the world is going to be that of a vocational teacher. Basically, professors and vocational teachers are going to be the most hired for jobs in the top three until 2027. Thank you for that. And we have two more questions. So very quickly, you are named as Sterilisia Consulting. Please tell me your name and then go ahead and ask your question.
I'm Deepa Rao. Hi, good evening, everyone. And I'm really enjoying your pragmatic assessment of the NEP, and it's quite a revelation because this is a change which I have been very excited about. But you know, between the central universities and the state universities today, there is a huge amount of quality difference. And I'm from Mumbai. So here the diktat is for the Mumbai University to implement NEP from 2023. And everybody suddenly scrambling to put things together. And makes me think, you know, thank God my kids are not there in this batch for now. So now my question to you is, do you think that quality standards can become uniform at some point in time between the central universities and the state-run universities?
So 2-3 observations. There was a time when the centrally funded technical institutions were far better. than central universities, and central universities were far better in state universities. But there was also a time when in every state there were 1 or 2 universities which were far better and far superior than many central universities and centrally funded technical institutions. Mumbai University was one. Allahabad University in UP could be another. Pune University had earned its name much later. So in every Punjab University, Chandigarh, so I can count a university in every state. Then came a time that the state started neglecting their higher education because they were told that primary education is more important than secondary and higher education. So if you have less money, invest in primary education. They forgot that higher education has a backward and forward linkage with primary education. You will not be able to provide good primary education unless you prepare a teacher, and those teachers are to come from higher education. You will not be able to contribute in the knowledge development unless you get a good feeding of students, seeding of students from the school education to higher education. That is why Kothari Commission has said that these three, primary, secondary, and tertiary, are equally important and they should get equal importance in the investments and attention. Now, worst thing that has happened is that we had thought that, okay, the central institutions are better. So state institution and bad institutions would copy and emulate and would become better and try to become as good as the central institutions. Unfortunate part is that the Gresham law is becoming applicable. So bad is driving the good out of circulation. So even the central universities are becoming like many of those universities. You mentioned Mumbai University and they are saying that they will implement from 2023. I have met vice chancellors and have been to universities where they claim that they have already implemented new education policy. And then you try to understand what they have implemented, then you find a total blank. Today, the situation is better the university, they are struggling how to implement, how to read, how to comprehend various classes. Worse the university, they have already implemented. So that is the kind of situation. I think we need to have clarity and we must realize that there are many problems which would require investments. You see, increasing the duration of the program from 3 years to 4 years. All right. 82-83% students are pursuing their undergraduate program. And if you increase the duration from 3 years to 4 years, it has implications for teachers, it has implications for classroom, it has implications for your examination system. And unless you are ready for that, and you simply say, then nothing would happen. So recall, OBC reservation, when it was implemented, good or bad, so it was decided that, okay, it will, you are increasing 27% capacity of higher education system by implementing 27% reservation. They also had a challenge that how to ensure that after implementing OBC reservation, the share of the general category does not come down below 50%. So mathematically, they found out that, okay, if you increase 54%, and then all institutions were asked how much money do you need for this 54% expansion. Much expansion that you see in central institutions, in even Mumbai, etc., that came at about that time, though they took longer time. So it has financial implication, it has teacher implication, it has curricular implication. You see, there was a professor, he is no more, very renowned professor, A.M. Khusro. A.M. Khusro was from Hyderabad. He was with the Institute of Economic Growth, and then later on he became Vice Chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University, and then Chairman of Aga Khan Foundation. So that was his credential. So he used to say that it is easier to copy-paste curricula from the best institution of the world. You can have a syllabus from MIT and Harvard. I can copy the syllabus of O.P. Jindal, but the teacher teaches only what she knows, what he knows. It means unless you focus on teacher, So from top down, you give them a curricula. The teacher is unable to deliver. So it is better for the teacher to deliver what the teacher knows. Still, I am not seeing any trend in any university to know that what interests a teacher and would that teacher want to launch a course around his area of specialization, which is a very common practice in all foreign universities. So these are the kind of things. So yes, policy would be implemented. I think the basic essential spirit of the policy is improvement in the higher education system, promotion of excellence. Promotion of excellence not only in terms of ranking improvement, because we all know that how are the ranking data created and fed and churned in a real sense. Only then we will become Vishwaguru. So let us not do anything which will harm the system. In fact, in the medical degree, the first thing that they teach is no harm to patient first. So the doctor tries everything first, and only when the doctor reaches the conclusion, if surgery is the last option, without surgery or radiation, nothing would work, then they go. Pehle hi टांग नहीं काट देते. So I think we'll have to learn from the medical discipline. कि भाई पहले ही हाथ पैर मत काट दीजिए ये सोच करके कि ये तो सड़े हुए हाथ थे और इसका इलाज नहीं हो सकता. नहीं, I think it's a long drawn process. If you do not do the Radhakrishnan Commission report of 48, or why only Radhakrishnan Commission, 1913 Sadler Commission report, if you read them today, they look so fresh as if that they are written for today's context. And you think that why can't we implement them? So I think the real challenge really is in the implementation, whereby we need to have a supportive board. Lastly and finally, in answer to your question, higher education in India is in concurrent list. Why higher education? All education is in the concurrent list, where both the center and the state are responsible. They have a shared responsibility. That is done deliberately because we are a diverse society, we are a diverse state, we have a linguistic diversity, we have a religious diversity. I think without taking a state on board and just by dictating or directing states from top that you do this will not work. So like NEP they have done, NEP favors all CBSE students. Success rate is 50% for the CBSE boys. For Tamil Nadu boys, it is far lower. Now, can you imagine having doctors in a country in surplus, but no doctor which speaks Tamil? Can they treat Tamil patient, Malayali patient, Maharashtrian patient? No. So these are the real critical issues. Sorry, I have taken longer time in answering your question. But did I answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Qamar. And again, the passion with which you're speaking about it, and clearly the depth of the wealth of context that you come with. I think that's what is making this session so special, that it's not just about the NEP, it's about the context of what preceded this NEP. And I think it's a great lesson in history for everyone who cares about education or who works in this space. And I know a lot of people are going to watch this session. We do have one last question, but sir, if you have another minute, we can take it. Otherwise, okay, great. So Binoy, do you want to ask it yourself? You've typed your question in the chat, or do you want me to ask it for you? You can go ahead and ask the question if you're here.
Hi, can you hear me?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so the question is more about, more to do with the way the universities will gauge high school students. Like right now, a lot is focused on grade 12, the score in the grade 12, or some colleges have an entrance test separately, but there is this whole change coming up with the NEP around, is it performance through 9, 10th, 11th, 12th? Is it a combination of high school and the entrance exam? So just wanted clarity on this.
No, presently the policy doesn't detail these things. If
Okay.
you are talking about Kasturi Rangan committee reports, maybe there were some indications in that, but the policy document doesn't mention. It only says that there should be a common principle for admitting students. present situation is that for all central universities, they have said that, okay, you take the CUET. Some people pronounce it as cute, though it is not as cute. Now this whole idea of admitting students on a numeric index has been rejected by the best universities of the world. So they follow a method whereby there is a SAT score taken into account, the essay that a student writes is taken into account, the statement of purpose that a student writes is taken account, his past academic background is taken account, and all of these, mind you, there is no perfect system that exists. So all of these are subject to manipulation. So in India, you know that there are consultants who will write a statement of purpose. Today, the artificial intelligence ChatGPT would prepare you your statement of purpose or develop your CV if you want to ask questions. Fine. So there is no system which is a perfect system. We were in jail in 2012, and around jail, we also visited Columbia, we went to Harvard, we went to Princeton, we went to Penn State University, and everywhere we were trying to understand the system of admissions and system of administration. So like in jail, we were told that there is a committee of 5 teachers. And these teachers, after the basic level of scrutiny, on the basis of past score and durations and essentials, these 5 teachers sit, they pick up a CV, and if 4 of those 5 people say yes, then this candidate is taken in. And no questions asked. The autonomy and the freedom of these 5 teachers are absolute. In India, unfortunately, we do not trust teachers. And presently, the way we have appointed teacher, perhaps it will be too dangerous to trust them. But then finding a way out of this would be desirable. Otherwise, merely by relying on a particular score, and particularly, say for example, you ask those people who have organized CAT for so many years that provide us consistency score, provide us reliability score, provide us validity score of your test for the past 10 years. They would not. It's not in public domain. Probably they don't compute. So is the NEP. So is the JEE. You ask the Pennsylvania Educational Testing Service that, okay, provide us the reliability, validity scores of your SAT or TOEFL or IELTS in UK, they would be able to provide. You can challenge their methodology of calculating statistics of reliability, but they will provide. So a test may not be a very reliable measure. Past examination could still be a better, despite the fact that I know that there are boards where all kinds of things happen, where a student pass and score high marks. So we need to evolve a system. In fact, BITS Pilani had a system which we could have adopted long time ago, that they had a way of normalizing scores. Simple way of normalizing that, okay, you are from Bihar board, you got 56%, and in Bihar board, the topper had scored 76. So in relation to the topper, where do you exist? You are from CBSC, you have secured 76%, but your topper was 99.9%. So where do you exist in that relation? So they used to normalize. And then BITS Pilani was getting a diversity. JNU had a model. JNU had a diversity index, that if you are coming from a rural area, you are getting some points. If you were getting from the economically weaker section, you were getting a point. So I think those kinds of systems need to be tried, tested, rather than formalizing everything. India is too large. India is not Singapore. India is not Hong Kong. India is too large, too diverse for one system to work. In fact, there is one article, maybe I'll share it with you, Ankur, that was published by Indian Express in 2016. Through data, what it proved was that the quality of higher education is inversely proportional to the intensity of regulation. The more intensely you try to regulate, you do it with the intention of improving quality, but you cause harm. So people die because they are taking more medicines than they should be taking. So I think, Binay, your answer that policy is saying a common principle. They have read it, Central University entrance test. They are reading it further that there should be one nation, one examination. Now they are also talking about that NEET and JEE to be merged in this queue. But I think they need to understand, analyze that, and remember the principle of medicines, that no harm caused unless it is extremely essential and necessary.
Thank you, Sir Qamar. And on that note, I think we're past time, and just goes to show how engaging it was. Thank you for your insights, and we hope to catch up with you when we are in Delhi next and have some chai pe charcha. And Ankur, over to you to close the session.
Thank you so much, Bhakti. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here and asking such insightful questions to Professor Qamar. As someone who has known Professor Qamar for not a long time, but I'll say at least more than many of us here, I know what an insightful man he is, and the responses that he has for deep responses that you saw it in the answers that he gave. I mean, he gave a lot of context, he gave a lot of history in the way he was tackling the questions that we put forward. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you, Professor Qamar, for taking time out. We know we are very busy, but having a stalwart like you with us in TOC and giving this opportunity for all of us to talk to you and ask relevant questions to you, it's an honor for us to have you with us, sir. And we look forward to continuing our conversations as we proceed and have more collaborations in the future. And as Bhakti said, probably sometime when we are all in Delhi, I mean, we can have a chai pe charcha somewhere in Jamia or somewhere else, wherever it may suit for us. So thank you, sir. Please do share the article. I'd love to share it with the Indian Express article that you mentioned. I mean, I already have got messages on my WhatsApp that we want to learn from that article. Please do that.
So I'll do that. So thank you very much, Ankur, for curating this program. It was a pleasure. And I was as much delighted to be in your company and in this August audience. In fact, every question that people asked was a subject matter of 1 hour discussion. I think every question that you asked, Ankur, every question that Bhakti asked, and every question that audience asked. So maybe some other time, and you are most welcome to come to Jamia, and we shall positively meet. And thank you very much. It was a privilege and pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.